Hey love, it's me Cam. I'm here to do part 2 of my Insulin Management series, and I apologize it took me so long. I had actually forgotten about it until someone sent me a private message reminding me of it, because she was just wondering if I was going to still do it, and yes I am. I'm going to do it now. So this is going to actually cover my food dose calculation, which is extremely important in managing your diabetes, whether you are type 1 like myself or even for type 2s. Obviously you may not be taking as much insulin as a type 1, but there are some type 2s who do take insulin in order to manage their diabetes. So before every single meal, even if you're going to eat a salad with no sugar attached to it, please know that those salads such as cucumbers, if you have green beans in your salad, a lot of vegetables still contain a small portion of carbohydrates. For instance, a cup of green beans has 3 grams of carbohydrate. So if you are like myself, for a snack I may have green beans and onions chopped together, and may have 2 cups of that in a setting. I'm taking anywhere between 6 to 10 grams of carbohydrate, and in the past I didn't account for that, so my sugar will always be a little bit off, and I really didn't know why until I realized, oh, vegetables have carbohydrates. So for every meal, make sure you check your sugar in order to bring yourself back to your target, and for me that's 100. My food dose consists of my pre-meal glucose factor. Then considers an insulin carbohydrate ratio for the meal I'm going to be eating, and then it takes into account any insulin on board that I may have from previous shots of the day. So I'm just going to go through a typical scenario of a meal that I may eat, and this is how I come up with my calculation for how much insulin I should take for that particular meal. So let's say I'm currently at 115, which is a very nice glucose level for myself. Some people may want to go lower than that, but for me, a pre-meal of 115 is actually very good. I don't like to be too low, because when I'm really low, I have headaches and it just is not good. So 115 is good for your girl. So I'm now going to take consideration my glucose factor from my pre-meal, which brings me down to 0.5. So if you want to see more information on how I came up with that calculation, see the video, my first video in this series, and I'm going to have that attached in the box below. That's what I'm considering my ICR, and for me that is 1 to 8, and that means for every 8 grams of carbohydrate that I eat, I take 1 unit of insulin. So if I eat 16 grams of carbohydrate, I'm going to take 2 units of insulin to cover my meal. This is just giving you an example of a typical meal that I eat. I try to eat meat at least 3 days a week, because I'm not really into meat that much, but I found that chicken legs, the skinless, is not as disgusting as I originally used to think. So this is a typical meal, and it has 40 grams of carbohydrate. So this is how I calculate my ICR. So for 40 grams, I take consideration my ICR of 8. So I do the calculation, and that is 5 units of insulin. See how simplistically easy I made that for you guys? For this example, I'm saying that from the time I took my shot at breakfast to the time that I'm eating now at lunch, it's been more than 4 hours, so I wouldn't have insulin on board. Usually I would have an hour of insulin on board, and that may be like some fractional amount, but this will make it more simplistic. I don't have any insulin on board in this example. So I would take in consideration my pre-meal glucose factor of 0.5. I have now 5 units of insulin that I should consider, and there's no insulin on board, so I have 5.5. Now, depending on what your endocrinologist and you have come up with is best, you can either round up or you can round down, because when you take insulin in the flexi pens, ones that I use, they're in whole numbers, so I can take 5.5 units of insulin. Now if you're taking the insulin pump, and I used to be on the insulin pump, you can do fractionals, and that for me is like perfect. That's why I really love the pump, and I am thinking about getting back on the insulin pump. But anyway, since I'm taking the flexi pen, I can only round up or down, and for me, we decided that the best case for me to round up. So for this meal, consider what my sugar was before, taken into the meal, and taking my insulin on board, I would take 6 units of insulin. So in the first example, my pre-glucose was over or above my target of 100. What happens if my glucose is under? So this is just another example. I like to give you guys, variations of what if my glucose was 80 before my meal. So my correction factor would be a negative amount, which winds up being a negative 0.67 in this case. and I still would have the 5 units of insulin that I would have to take. And so now my dose should be 4.33. And so for me, I would still round up, even though it's close to 4. You would say, well, why wouldn't you take 4? Because you have to come up with a method that is consistent. So for consistency, I would still always round up, and so I would take 5 units of insulin. I'm really hoping that this helps others out there manage their diabetes. This is how my team of specialists and myself manage mine. I find that this is very well for my hemoglobin A1C levels to be healthy, and they're constantly improving. So if you have any suggestions, I would definitely appreciate them whatsoever. And as always, if you're going to do any type of changes to your insulin management, please consult your endocrinologist, your doctor, and or your nutritionist. So till next time, love and peace.